Welcome to Sci-Fi Verse. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos, and enjoy the listening. The sleek silver form of the Curiosity hovered in low orbit above Earth, its sensors locked on a small suburban home below. Inside the vessel, tension filled the air. Captain Draxon's claws clicked against his command chair as he watched the live feed on the central monitor. The target, a small quadrupedal creature called Mittens, lay curled up on a sunlit windowsill, purring contentedly. To any observer, it was an image of pure innocence. But for the Vraen, this creature was an enigma they hadn't cracked, and they weren't about to give up. This wasn't their first encounter with Mittens. Days earlier, a routine surveillance mission turned into a disaster when an entire Vraen strike team was systematically outmaneuvered by the creature they were trying to capture. Since then, the crew had been forced to reassess everything they knew about predator behavior. "We underestimated it," Captain Draxon said, mandibles flexing with irritation. "This isn't a typical apex predator. It's something else." His science officer, Mira, nodded. Her tendrils curled into cautious spirals as she reviewed the data. "It operates on multiple levels: predator, manipulator, companion. Whatever it is, it's smart enough to use its environment, including humans, to its advantage. It's playing a game we don't fully understand." Draxon leaned forward, his eyes narrowing at Mittens' tranquil expression on the screen. "We need a new approach, something it won't see coming." Mira's eyes glinted with a mix of curiosity and concern. "You're thinking of deploying the microbots? The adaptive ones designed to blend in?" "Exactly. We'll infiltrate the house without Mittens or the humans noticing. The bots will gather data and subtly influence the environment. We'll push it until we can predict its responses." Mira hesitated, her tendrils flicking in thought. "It's a good plan, but if this creature is as aware as we suspect, it might detect the bots. It could even turn them against us. We need to learn more before taking direct action. Deploy the bots." Mira nodded, signaling the command to her team. Below, tiny, insect-like microbots descended through Earth's atmosphere, cloaked in stealth fields. The bots dispersed seamlessly, embedding themselves into the human home as ordinary objects: a clock, a lamp, even a ball of yarn. They monitored every move, every purr, and every twitch of Mittens' tail. For the first few hours, everything went smoothly. Data streamed in, showing Mittens' routine as she napped, played, and occasionally hunted insects. The humans were blissfully unaware of the Vraen's subtle invasion. But soon, anomalies began cropping up in the data. "Captain, something's wrong," a junior analyst reported. "Several bots are transmitting distorted signals, like their data feeds are being scrambled." Mira frowned as she reviewed the glitchy visuals. "This interference doesn't make sense. No human technology could cause this." Draxon's eyes darkened as he watched the flickering screen. "It's her. She's onto us." Mira's tendrils tightened in agitation. She might be emitting a field that's disrupting the bots. "We underestimated her senses, and it seems she's aware of the surveillance. How can a creature like that detect such advanced tech?" Mira shook her head. "We don't know, but it's clear she's more than a terrestrial predator. Her behavior is too precise, too calculated." Suddenly, the screen blinked back to life, showing Mittens staring directly at one of the hidden cameras. Her eyes glowed faintly, and for a moment the entire bridge fell silent. Mittens slowly blinked, a gesture that felt more like a taunt than a reflex. Then, with deliberate slowness, she walked up to the disguised bot, rubbed against it affectionately, and flicked her tail with casual disdain. The feed cut out instantly. "She's toying with us," Mira whispered, her voice tinged with both awe and fear. "She's sending a message." Draxon slammed his clawed fist onto the console. "We've been outmaneuvered again. We need to reconsider our approach. This creature isn't just surviving, it's thriving by outthinking us." Mira's eyes flicked between the captain and the darkened screen. "What's our next move, Captain? Do we continue with the bots or escalate?" "We hold steady," Draxon replied, his voice tense with determination. "We keep watching. If she's playing a game, we'll learn the rules before making our next move." As the crew scrambled to regain control of the operation, the Curiosity hovered in silence. Below, in the cozy warmth of her human home, Mittens stretched luxuriously, a satisfied purr rumbling in her throat. For the Vraen, this was a mission of scientific inquiry. For Mittens, it was just another day in a game where she always came out on top. The longer the mission dragged on, the more the Vraen grappled with a problem that defied every system they relied on. Mittens, the seemingly ordinary Earth cat, slipped through every classification, every theory they proposed. The more we analyze, the less sense this all makes, Mira said, frustration creeping into her voice. Her tendrils curled as she sifted through layers of data. One moment she's behaving like a typical predator, the next, she's performing actions that seem calculated to mislead us. One of the junior researchers pointed at the footage. Look at this sequence. She's playing with that laser pointer the humans are using, chasing it like a mindless animal. But if you watch closely, she's timing her movements, always missing by just enough. She's in complete control. Mira replayed the footage in slow motion. Sure enough, Mittens was deliberately toying with the red dot, swatting with precision too calculated to be instinctual. The humans, unaware of the manipulation, laughed as they guided the laser, thinking they were in charge. It's a behavioral loop, Mira said. She's training them to react. They think they're entertaining her, but she's the one reinforcing patterns in their behavior. Captain Vraen, who had been observing in silence, spoke up. If she's conditioning them, what's her goal? Companionship? Control? Or is there something deeper? Mira's voice was tense. Maybe all of the above. We've been focused on her interaction with the humans, but there's something else, something that doesn't fit into any known predator-prey models. Vraen crossed his arms. What do you suggest? We've run every analysis possible, and she's outmaneuvered all of them. Before Mira could respond, an analysis officer pulled up a new feed showing increasingly strange human behavior. The humans moved through their routines with subtle but noticeable deviations, pausing mid-task, then heading straight to Mittens, compelled to check on her comfort. The behavior was subtle but unnatural. What's happening to them? Vraen asked. Mira's tendrils twitched. It's as if she's rewired their priorities. They're neglecting other tasks to focus entirely on her. It's like they're under her spell, a junior officer muttered. There's no such thing as spells, Vraen snapped. But this isn't natural. She's manipulating them. The ship's AI observant chimed in. Analysis indicates a correlation between their behavior and exposure to the cat's vocalizations. Specifically, low-frequency purring synchronizes with brainwave patterns linked to contentment and attachment. Mira's eyes widened. Her purring is more than a sound, it's a tool she's using to control their emotional state. Correct, observant confirmed. The frequency aligns with brainwaves associated with relaxation and bonding. It likely explains why the humans are prioritizing her comfort over everything else. Vraen clenched his claws. She's pacifying her environment using sound alone. No wonder the humans don't see her as a threat, they're conditioned to feel safe around her. Mira considered the implications. If Mittens could influence the humans with something as subtle as purring, her true strength might lie in her ability to manipulate perceptions on a level the Vraen hadn't accounted for. A junior researcher hesitated. Captain, if this cat has evolved such sophisticated influence, what's stopping her from using it on us? The question lingered like a dark cloud. Vraen's mandibles clicked as he weighed the possibility. Our cognitive patterns are different, we're not wired for the same emotional manipulation. Mira remained cautious. Even so, we can't assume we're immune. We've seen how she disrupts our technology. She might extend her influence in ways we haven't predicted. We need to stay alert. Vraen straightened, his voice taking on a steely edge. We proceed with caution. Monitor both the humans and the cat, but be ready to pull back at the first sign of her influence. As the crew set to work, Mira stayed behind, troubled. She sensed they were on the verge of uncovering something profound, something that could redefine interspecies interaction. But there was also a gnawing fear that Mittens was one step ahead, subtly guiding their actions just as she guided the humans. Back in the human home, Mittens lay sprawled on a cushion, her eyes half closed in blissful contentment. Her humans doted on her with soft words and gentle strokes, utterly unaware they were under her influence. To them, she was just a beloved pet. But for Mittens, this was part of a deliberate strategy, a game of patience, influence, and control. She sensed the invisible eyes watching, the foreign mind struggling to decode her nature. Let them watch and theorize in the end. She knew they would find nothing they could truly grasp. Aboard the Curiosity, the Vraen delved deeper into the mystery, dissecting every detail. For Mittens, however, there was no mystery, just the satisfaction of winning a game her observers didn't even know they were playing. Captain Vraen's attention shifted as the humans' behavior began to change. Their growing obsession with Mittens, the subtle shifts in their priorities, were becoming too pronounced to ignore. "They're not acting like themselves," Vraen muttered, observing how the humans abandoned chores and even meals to attend to the cat's every need. Their routines had been gradually but completely altered. Mira highlighted a timeline of the humans' daily activities. The more time they spend with her, the more they cater to her whims without question. They don't even notice how their lives have started revolving around her. Vraen's eyes narrowed. They're being conditioned, but it's happening so gradually they see it as normal. There's no distress, no complaints. They're content, completely at peace with this new dynamic. Mira's tendrils curled thoughtfully. It's almost symbiotic. The humans provide food, shelter, and affection, while the cat offers. What? Companionship? Emotional stability? It's as if she's engineered a perfectly balanced ecosystem where she holds the power. But why, Vraen wondered aloud? Is she just maintaining comfort? Or is there a deeper purpose, something we're missing? As if in answer, the screen showed a live feed of the humans doting on Mittens. The younger one knelt beside her, offering treats with reverence. The older human, once diligent, now lounged nearby, completely absorbed in the cat's presence. In the background, an untouched dinner lay forgotten on the table. Mira's voice tightened. It's like their priorities have been rewritten. Their focus is entirely on her, and everything else is secondary. I'm beginning to think this behavior might be spreading not just to the humans, but potentially affecting us too. Vraen shot her a sharp look. Explain. Mira hesitated. We've been so focused on analyzing her that it's subtly influencing our judgment. Our decisions are becoming more reactive, less rational, as if we're adapting our strategies to her instead of maintaining control. The realization hit Vraen hard. Mira was right, the crew was mirroring the behavior of the very humans they were studying. Mittens had become the focal point of their mission, and they had allowed her to dictate their actions. The ship's AI, observant, broke the silence. Analysis of the human's neurological patterns reveals a strong correlation between proximity to the cat and dopamine release, a neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and reward. The cat's presence seems to stimulate these responses, reinforcing attachment behavior. Mira's tendrils tightened. So it's not just the purring. Her presence alone is triggering positive reinforcement in their brains. They're becoming mentally and emotionally dependent on her. Vraen's mandibles clicked in frustration, which means separating them could lead to resistance, even aggression. This dependency isn't natural, it's been engineered. Mittens has positioned herself as a psychological anchor for these humans. Mira's voice grew quiet. Captain, if she's capable of this level of influence, what happens if she starts exerting more control? Right now she's content with comfort, but what if she begins directing their decisions? That's what we need to uncover, Vraen said, resolute. We can't let this situation spiral out of control. If she's influencing the humans, we need to understand how far that influence goes and how to counter it. The crew intensified their surveillance, monitoring the humans more closely. New algorithms tracked subtle changes in behavior, searching for signs of deepening subservience to Mittens. Over time, the evidence became clear: the human's attachment to the cat was evolving into something more intense, bordering on worship. One evening, while reviewing footage, Mira and her team witnessed something that sent a chill through the room. The younger human sat beside Mittens, absently stroking her fur with a distant gaze. Her murmurs were incoherent at first, but then a phrase became clear. Mittens knows best. Mittens knows best. The words were repeated with an unsettling rhythm, almost like a chant. It was as if the human had been programmed, her mind fixated on this mantra. Rewind, that Vraen ordered, his voice sharp with intensity. The footage replayed, and this time the older human joined in, nodding and repeating the phrase with a vacant smile. They've been fully conditioned, Mira said, her tendrils trembling. It's more than affection, it's obedience. She's turned them into something like acolytes. Vraen's expression darkened. She's more than just a predator, she's a controller. We've allowed this to happen under our watch. The revelation hit the crew hard. The Vraen prided themselves on logic and reason, yet they were up against a creature using emotional manipulation and social engineering tools they barely understood. Vraen turned to Mira, determination burning in his eyes. We need to break this influence. The humans are compromised, and if we don't act soon, we'll lose control entirely. Mira's voice wavered. Captain, it's not that simple. We don't fully understand the depth of her influence. If we act too aggressively, it could backfire, and if she feels threatened, she might escalate in ways we can't predict. Draxon's claws flexed as he weighed the options. We'll proceed cautiously, but we must regain control. This creature may be clever, but we can't let her outthink us. As the crew prepared to sever Mittens' hold on the humans, tension aboard the ship escalated. They knew they were facing something far more dangerous than anticipated, a creature that had subtly turned their mission into a game with stakes they were only beginning to grasp. Meanwhile, down in the quiet home, Mittens lay curled on her cushion, purring contentedly. Her humans were close by, perfectly aligned with her unspoken desires. The invisible web of influence she had spun was tightening, and she knew it. The Vraen were clever, but they were still outsiders, fumbling in the dark. For Mittens, victory was inevitable. She would let them think they had a chance. What's a game without a little hope before the fall? Mira's tendrils coiled tight with anxiety. You're right, Captain. We've been reacting to her every move instead of anticipating them. We need to shift tactics, outthink her before she acts. Draxon turned to the observation screens, which now displayed increasingly bizarre rituals in the human's home. The younger human knelt beside Mittens, offering her food with reverence. The older human watched with an unsettling smile, occasionally repeating, "Mittens knows best." "This is escalating," Mira said, her voice tense. "They're treating her like a deity. If she can make them this devoted, what happens if she pushes them further?" Draxon's mandibles clicked in irritation. "We can't let it reach that point. Mittens knows we're watching, and the humans are compromised. We need a direct approach, but not one she'll expect." Mira's eyes widened. "You're proposing synthetic operatives." "Exactly," Draxon replied, his voice hardening. "We'll deploy androids disguised as the humans' perfect replicas that can interact with Mittens while we monitor her influence up close. We need to observe her responses in real time, and, if possible, break her hold on the humans." The plan was risky. Mittens had already proven herself dangerously perceptive. If she detected any hint of deception, it could provoke a defensive reaction or worse, cause her to escalate her control over the humans. Mira frowned. "There's a real danger in this, Captain. If she senses something off, she might use the humans against us or turn the situation entirely in her favor." "I know the risks," Draxon said. "But we're out of options. Subtlety and brute force haven't worked. This is our best chance to engage her directly while maintaining control." The plan was swiftly set into motion. 2 synthetic operatives identical down to their mannerisms and voices were prepped. Their behavioral algorithms were fine-tuned to seamlessly mimic human interaction. Once deployed, they would replace the real humans, moving naturally within the household while gathering data. The teleportation chamber hummed as the synthetic operatives materialized in the human home. The crew watched tensely from the bridge. Inside, Mittens lay on her cushion, eyes half-lidded in the evening sun. The real humans had been discreetly relocated, and the androids moved as if nothing had changed. The younger synthetic approached Mittens with a cheerful greeting. "Hey, Mittens, want some treats?" the android chirped, offering a dish. Mittens' ears flicked as she lazily glanced up. At first, the android's perfect mimicry seemed convincing. Mittens appeared indifferent, but then her eyes sharpened, narrowing with a calculating focus that sent a ripple of unease through the watching Vraen. "She's onto them," Mira muttered. "Look at how she's studying them. She knows something's off." Mittens rose gracefully and padded over to the synthetic human, moving with deliberate slowness. She circled its legs, brushing against them with a calculated softness and affectionate gesture that was clearly a test. The synthetic human maintained its cheerful demeanor, offering more treats and trying to engage her with familiar rituals. But Mittens' gaze remained unblinking, her tail swishing rhythmically as she continued her inspection. For a tense moment, it seemed the ruse might work until Mittens suddenly froze. Without warning, she struck. Her claws sliced cleanly through the synthetic's leg, exposing circuits and wires. Sparks flew as the android stumbled, struggling to maintain its human facade while systems malfunctioned. "Abort. Get them out of there," Draxon ordered, slamming his fist on the console. Before retrieval could be initiated, Mittens leaped onto the android's chest, claws digging into synthetic skin. Her eyes glowed with a predatory intensity as she assessed the damage, then calmly bit into a critical joint. With a crunch, the android collapsed, its systems shutting down. The second synthetic, realizing the deception had failed, tried to retreat, but Mittens was already in pursuit. In a blur of motion, she darted across the room, her movements impossibly fluid. She didn't attack immediately. Instead, she stalked the fleeing synthetic with deliberate steps, her tail flicking like a pendulum. The android's sensors registered the threat, but its programming was too rigid to adapt. Within moments, Mittens had it pinned, her claws poised above its central processor. "Teleport them out now," Mira shouted. The teleportation beam activated just in time, whisking the damaged synthetics back to the Curiosity before Mittens could deliver the final blow. When the chamber doors slid open, the crew stared in stunned silence at the shredded remains of their once flawless androids. Torn circuits sparked, and synthetic skin hung in tatters, a clear message: Mittens would not be fooled. Draxon's claws dug into his command chair. We underestimated her again. She saw through the ruse instantly and dismantled the synthetics with surgical precision. Mira's voice was hushed, a mix of awe and fear. She wasn't just attacking, she was studying them. Her actions were methodical, like she was learning how they worked. This isn't just a game to her, she's evolving her tactics. Draxon's mandibles clicked in frustration. She's probing our weaknesses while we try to understand hers. If we keep reacting instead of leading, we'll lose this entirely. As the crew regrouped, an unspoken dread settled over the ship. They had considered themselves masters of observation and analysis, but Mittens had turned their strategy into an opportunity to learn more about them. She was proving to be their equal, if not their superior. Back in the quiet human home, Mittens returned to her cushion, purring softly as she curled up. The synthetics had been amusing but ultimately unworthy of her full attention. The humans would return soon, unaware of the conflict unfolding above them. For Mittens, the game was still in her control, and always would be. The Vraen had made their move, and they had failed. Now it was her turn. The hunt was far from over. "That's why we prepare for every contingency," Draxon said. "She's been winning because she's controlled the environment. We'll turn the tables by bringing her into a space where every variable is in our hands. If we can't contain her now, we may never get another chance." The crew immediately set to work transforming one of the ship's containment units into a chamber optimized to neutralize any threat. The walls were lined with energy-dampening fields and sensor disruptors, designed to counter even the most adaptive intelligence. The chamber was built for one purpose: to leave nothing to chance. With the chamber ready, the retrieval team was deployed. This time, there would be no drones or synthetics, only the precision of Vraen operatives. Mira led the operation, determined to see it through. On Earth, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet neighborhood. Inside the human home, Mittens lounged on a windowsill, half-lidded eyes watching the fading light. Her humans moved about, oblivious to the incoming operation. The Vraen activated their teleportation beacons and materialized silently within the home. Mira led the team with calculated precision, putting the humans into a stasis field to ensure they were safely out of the way. "Stay sharp," Mira whispered over the command link. "Secure the target and extract no mistakes." But as they approached, Mittens' eyes snapped open. Her gaze locked onto the Vraen, revealing a chilling awareness. For a moment she remained perfectly still, but her eyes gleamed with a knowing glint, as if she had been expecting them. The operatives moved to encircle her, containment fields ready to deploy, but Mittens acted first. In a blur of motion, she darted between them, evading every attempt to trap her. Each swipe of her claws was precise, taking out equipment and disrupting their formation with clinical efficiency. "She's countering everything," a soldier shouted as his containment field shorted out. Mira's heart pounded. Mittens wasn't just reacting, she was dictating the engagement. Desperate to regain control, Mira ordered, "Fallback protocols, force her into the containment loop." But as they adjusted, Mittens suddenly stopped. Her tail flicked lazily as she looked at Mira, almost bored. Then, to everyone's shock, she simply sat down and let out a soft, playful meow. The containment loop activated, capturing her in an energy field. Mira hesitated, staring at the cat now calmly sitting in the center of the containment field. Is she surrendering? Draxon's voice crackled through the command link. "Secure her and teleport back. We've got her where we want her." Moments later, Mittens was beamed aboard the Curiosity, still contained as she was transferred into the specially prepared chamber. The crew watched anxiously as she was lowered into the sterile holding area. Everything had gone according to plan, but as the containment field deactivated, Mittens stepped out and began grooming herself with serene indifference. There was no panic, no struggle, just an eerie calm that made the crew uneasy. Her eyes tracked the hidden cameras with casual, predatory confidence. In the control room, Draxon and Mira observed the feed with growing discomfort. Every sensor was trained on Mittens, monitoring her every movement, yet she showed no signs of stress. "She's too calm," Mira muttered. "No attempts to escape, no distress. It's like she's letting us study her." Draxon's mandibles twitched in frustration. "She thinks she's still in control. She's waiting for us to act, and this time we'll lead." The plan was to overwhelm her with sensory input, light patterns, sound waves, electromagnetic pulses to push her beyond her limits. The chamber was designed to disorient and force her into revealing her capabilities. The sequence began. The chamber filled with flickering lights, pulsating sounds, and fluctuating energy fields. Mittens paused her grooming, her ears twitching as she absorbed the stimuli. But instead of reacting with discomfort, her eyes narrowed in focused analysis. Then she began to purr. The sound started as a soft vibration but quickly deepened, resonating through the chamber. The frequency grew, sending interference rippling through the ship's systems. Lights flickered, sensors wavered, and the carefully calibrated feedback loops began to destabilize. "Something's wrong," a technician shouted as the control systems glitched. "The containment field is failing, she's destabilizing it." Draxon's eyes widened. "Shut it down, now." But before they could act, the purring intensified, reverberating through the ship. Panels shorted out, alarms blared, and critical systems began to fail. Mittens' purring had somehow resonated with the ship's core systems, turning her containment into a weapon. Mira's tendrils coiled in panic. She's breaking through from the inside. How is this possible? As the crew scrambled, Mittens remained calm, still seated in the chamber center. Her eyes locked onto a camera, a glint of intelligence in their depths, something far more advanced and ancient than they had anticipated. In that moment, the containment field collapsed entirely. The crew realized the unsettling truth: Mittens had never been captured, she had allowed herself to be brought aboard. Every step, from the synthetics to the containment chamber, had been part of her plan. Now she was ready to take control. Draxon's voice was tight with fear as he ordered an emergency lockdown, but it was too late. The ship's systems were compromised, and the Curiosity was at the mercy of a creature they had grossly underestimated. The feed went dark, leaving only the faint echo of purring, a sound that promised something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. For the Vraen, the hunt was over. For Mittens, the game had just begun.